To do a quick intro as we do wait, my name is Andres. I work for OpenSpace. Alongside Tony, I'll be leading the call today, kind of diving deeper into how OpenSpace kind of brings that image first ability to jump into your project and visually see it. Some of my experience from the past, you know who is here, is I actually used to work in construction. You probably hear it from the accent, but I spent a lot of time in the US working in the heavy civil infrastructure scopes of work. And then I jumped over to tech to kind of be part of this consulting solutions engineer type of role. So excited to kind of be here today. And Tony, I'll pass it off to you for a quick introduction on yourself as well.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, mate. So good morning, everyone. So my name is Tony Harbour. I head up the technology partner program for Procore. We'll dive a bit deeper into what Procore is, what they do, and how we kind of partner with OpenSpace. Very similar to Andres in that I'm not from the tech world. I'm from construction. I spent probably 20 plus years in the industry in various different roles. I'm a mechanical engineer by kind of trade, if you like, but spent various roles within technical sales, commercial management, project management in the industry. So sort of post-COVID, realized I wanted to reinvent myself, so to speak, and kind of moved over into the tech world, and here I am. So really excited to get into this with you guys this morning.
Perfect. So to kind of give you a preview of the agenda, some things to say first. This is being recorded. So as we kind of do this, there's some that might be able to not join us today. This will be shared next week. So keep that in mind as you kind of see it. You will also have a kind of something that you can reference back to on everything we covered today. There's also the component of the Q&A. So if you want to ask any questions, we'll have time at the end of the webinar to answer those and talk through those, as well as the chat. So feel free to use both of those as we talk through and show you both the Procore and OpenSpace systems. In the beginning, we'll kind of just give you a brief understanding of what Procore is, what its functions are, as well as OpenSpace, and then we'll jump straight into the common use cases, how to actually get both connected and integrated, as well as the way that we use documentation from an OpenSpace point of view to then collaborate with RFIs, observations, and snags. And then at the end, like I mentioned earlier, the Q&A to see if you have any questions along the way. To kick it off, Tony, I'll pass it off to you to kind of just give us that Procore view.
Cool, thanks. So look, the next couple of slides really are just to kind of give you, kind of set the scene really in terms of where the industry's at, how people typically use technology as is. And look, this is meant to be messy. It's meant to be kind of chaotic, if you like, in terms of the setup. But one of the things I've found over the years of working in the industry and then with Procore is that Procore's been a very kind of paper heavy industry, right? So everybody generally does things, or traditionally did things on paper. You know, if you walked into a site office even 10, 15 years ago, you'd have drawing racks, filing cabinets, stacks of paper on people's desks. Fortunately, what we've now really done in the industry is we've digitized a lot of those processes, which is great. It's fantastic. But this is typically what happens. So what you generally find is a lot of people will have digitized those kind of solutions, and what they're left with are multiple point solutions for different parts of the construction project. So, you know, you have main contractors using a different set of digital tools, subcontractors are using different sets, the design teams are using different sets, even the owner developers, clients are using a different set of tools. The main problem with doing that, one, you've got multiple point solutions, different people buying into them. You can't report on them very easily. You can't gather all that information in a real simplistic way. And nobody generally has access or full transparency of the data that you're actually collecting. One of the things I've really seen in construction, you know, the amount of data that we generate within the industry is phenomenal. People are now starting to come around to the fact that you want to be able to interrogate that data. You want to be able to make informed decisions on the amount of data and the complexity of the data that you're actually, you know, collecting within the industry itself. And if we jump then to the next slide, what we're now typically seeing is people are starting to condense their tech stacks down. You know, they want that more comprehensive way on reporting. So by utilizing Procore and using that at the core of your operations, this is how that kind of chaotic diagram comes into a much more manageable process. So you've got the owner, client, developer, the design teams, the main contractor, subcontractor, all sharing and collaborating that data into Procore. And off the side there, you've got the point solutions that all of these companies are going to be using. They're going to be inputting data into that, and all of that data and information is going to be feeding into Procore. So everybody on that construction site and within that organization has access to that data. They can make real informed decisions in real time, and they can make them much quicker than they used to be able to do. We're going to talk about RFIs a little bit later on, but it's a personal kind of bugbear of mine, and we're going to show you just how simple and easy it is to kind of generate an RFI and get that answered as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So look, a brief introduction into Procore and what we do. Some of you may know about Procore and what we're about. Procore is a cloud-based construction management platform. We started life back in 2002, where our founder and owner was really kind of came up with an idea, was building a property, had multiple kind of trades working on that property, but there was a real disconnect between the communication between all of these people. You know, light bulb moment, came up with this concept of what if we could have this kind of platform that people could communicate and collaborate in, and hence Procore was born. Honestly, in the early days of Procore, and this is kind of pre-iPhone, you know, pre-platform kind of mode, it bombed really. Nobody was really interested in the process. Everyone was happy with a clipboard on a construction site. It was the invention of the iPhone that really kicked things off, and having the power of, you know, multiple applications in your hand that really kind of kicked off the journey from Procore's perspective. So as I kind of alluded to in the previous slide, you know, the idea behind Procore is to connect all of them construction project stakeholders in a single source of truth, effectively. We have 4 main tools in Procore. So we have pre-construction, which is your tendering and estimating module. Project execution is really the core tool of Procore, and that deals with things like observations, RFIs, submittals. We have 2D, 3D drawing viewers within the project execution tool, and that's where the core of the construction companies will operate on a day-to-day basis. Workforce management manages effectively the time of staff on a construction site, and we would have integrations with site access control companies, so people logging in and logging out. You know, instead of writing in that old book you used to do in the visitor's office, you literally biometric scan, a thumbprint, you know, facial scan. That information of when you come in and remove and go out of site is then automatically logged. And then we have a financial tool. Now, we're not an ERP, we're not an accounting system. You know, we're not displacing your SAPs, Dynamics, you know, Zeros, QuickBooks of this world. The idea behind our financial tool is, and one of the things that Will say, and Andres, you'll attest to this, Excel is probably the biggest competitor to any technology company, you know, on the construction site. It goes back to my time on construction site. You know, the amount of construction companies that manage their budgets on a spreadsheet, it's crazy. So the idea behind our tool is they can upload that data, they can get real-time visibility on their budgets, where their money is being spent, and the idea is that you can, you know, see what money is kind of moving across that construction project during the life cycle. A couple of other points to kind of just gloss over quickly. So, you know, we're a platform first. I think the beauty of Procore is that we've started life as a platform, and we've always been a platform. You know, we haven't bought modules and built this platform up. We're a platform first approach from our perspective. We have a really intelligent reporting module within Procore, so you can build reports out from any of the data that you collect within Procore itself. And the last point, and which sits quite nicely in the middle, is the partner ecosystem that we have within Procore, and that's really important. And one of the reasons we're going to talk about, you know, a bit further on in the webinar. You know, we recognize we're not going to displace everything. Procore covers a lot on a construction site, but we're never going to cover everything. Okay, so the idea that companies can, you know, still utilize solutions like OpenSpace, but they can capture that data, bring that data into Procore via the integrations they have, is a really powerful thing. So what we're trying to do is connect all of those kind of disjointed point solutions into a single place and allow people to make, you know, really informed decisions. But that in a nutshell really is Procore and what we're about.
And kind of perfect example of like how we can partner together to be a part of that ecosystem is what OpenSpace brings to the table as an image first kind of fodder documentation, and giving everybody on the construction site, collaborators as well as internal subcontractors, that ability to understand the project through the images that we're capturing with the 360 cameras. So to kind of tell the story, to paint the picture here, I myself did this when I was on the construction site. But really, my method of progress tracking and visually understanding was to go around and snap photos with my phone. If we were good about it, I would remember to upload it to the server, but in all reality, it would just sit in my albums forever. So same thing happened with all of my colleagues as well. And it's going to be troublesome. When you need something down the line, it's really hard to find that images and understand what was actually happening during that point in time of the project. And so what we're doing here with OpenSpace, as you'll see here in the bottom right, is the idea of making it as simple as possible to understand your job site from that image first approach. And in collaboration here, we would go around, somebody would walk around with the camera, the 360 camera, capture everything that's happening on that job site for that level, and then it'll be able to visually see it in OpenSpace itself. Now, kind of the same topic of what Tony was mentioning, the beauty here is that in all the different scopes that Procore does, pre-construction all the way to the end lifecycle, finishing up the project, we're right there with them because we can be used in all the different phases of a project. And that's because that image first approach, everyone needs to be collaborating together. What better way to do it to have that image to be able to jump into a spot and look around a 360 image to better understand rather than try to use a single photo to tell a story. As you'll see here, these are many things that we'll talk about today when it comes to RFIs, snagging, verification, quality control, and all kind of using that image first approach can really, really help. When it comes to kicking off a project as well, there is a kind of an idea of utilizing Procore for that. So Tony, I'll kind of let you talk through the video here, but just kind of tell a story.
Yeah, cool. So look, I think the point behind this is just to give you a bit of an idea on how simple it really is to kick off a project. So what we typically see is most people, when they ingest or they take Procore on, they generally have a super user that's going to be the guys that are going to, the admin administrators that are going to be setting up these projects. So right at the very early stage, we can set up project templates for companies. So if all of their projects are going to be set up the same, they're going to have the same type of information, the same, accounting solutions linked into it. All of this can be kind of pre-done implementation phase. And the idea behind this video is just to show you how simple and easy it is within Procore to get that project, up to date. Things like, project address, photographs, the date it's going to start and finish, the value of the actual project itself. What type of contract is it? Is it a fit out contract? Is it commercial? Is it industrial? Whatever it might be, you get the options and you get to choose exactly how you set your project up. But it's really, really simple. It's really easy. The one thing I didn't mention at the beginning is Procore is a permissions-based solution. So only people with the correct permissions will get to see certain things in Procore. We want people to share and collaborate, but there's some things that you don't necessarily want people to see. So there is a permission-based kind of, mode within Procore that enables you to set that up. But, setting up a project is quick, it's simple, it's easy. And once it's done, you can then start to build your directory out. Even within Procore, you can kind of pull across all your cost codes, for example. So you can start to put in things like payment applications, which section of the project is this actually going to come from? So really simple, really easy. And yeah, it kind of kicks off everything that we're really setting into. But once we've done this, we have these companies that, we might have a company that's got OpenSpace already, and it's then chance for them, once that project is set up, to set that integration configuration up, which seamlessly I'll hand over to Andres now, who's going to kind of talk a bit more about that.
Exactly. And that's the video of wherever we are on that phase of the project. One of the first things we can be doing is just to start that photo documentation of the site progress. That day one is really important. We typically recommend doing very consistent captures, but to show the ease of use, really the first steps are you're connecting the camera to the device, you're putting it on top of the hard hat, and you're just going into the app to select the plan sheet that you're going to be capturing on, level 1, ground floor, dropping a pin of where you're standing, and then you're going to hit start capture. At that point, you can put it back in your pocket and just walk around. That's as easy as that. At that point, you're probably already following the same path you would be without OpenSpace, because you want to understand the progress, you want to understand what happened. And that value add is that single capture that happened is valuable to everybody, your architect, your engineers, your BIM managers, site managers, construction managers, you name it. Everybody can use that single capture that happens there. What we do after that capture happens is we upload it to the cloud. We start to analyze it. And then our AI is going to use SLAM technology to understand the plan sheet that you captured on, to then map that capture to it so that everyone can use it as a map, really. You'll see the capture path and be able to click into it and visually understand those areas of work. Whereas before, if you were trying to do that, you maybe were trying to just see it from an album's perspective, scroll, scroll, scroll. Typically, you're not really renaming the photo, so it's very, very difficult to view it from there. To kind of start setting up the project, we've kicked that off the project. We've created the project in both Procore and OpenSpace. Within these settings of OpenSpace is where you can actually start the integration with Procore. This is super simple. We have a tab called Integrations. You would be able to then click into the Procore icon. This will look at the permissions that you have in Procore to then be able to show you the projects you can integrate with. In this case, I will just find the project that I want to integrate with and hit submit. And that's it. It's simple as that. Once that's done, you would be able to then jump into the Procore system and showcase and integrate RFIs, observations, photos, as well as snag lists as well. One really nice thing that we do with Procore is work with their embedded system so that we can then utilize the ability to visually see and use OpenSpace all within Procore. Now, this does require certain permission from an admin's perspective, but you would be able to go to the app management page, go to after you've connected the OpenSpace app here, and then be able to configure the actual application together. This is different from the integration itself. This will give you the embedded experience that I'll show you, but it's as simple as just making sure you type in here the OpenSpace site ID, which would be unique to your project, and then select your region. This being different if you're in the EU, UK, US, and elsewhere that we support. I'm going to show you now this specific embedded experience so you can see how all within Procore, you can utilize all those captures that are happening on a week-to-week basis, for example. So to jump off.
And just while Andres is finding that, just to add a bit on that and talk a bit more about the embedded experience, which you're going to see now. The whole idea behind it from Procore's perspective, you know, if many of you people are like me now, that you've got multiple browsers open, you know, 30 or 40 tabs open on a browser with different solutions. The whole idea is that this makes this so simple and so easy. You know, you're in your site office, you've got that data, you haven't got to try and find the OpenSpace app to access the data. You literally just select the app in Procore and it brings it up in the same page. So you can navigate in OpenSpace as normal, but you can also access all of the tools within Procore, which is really, really neat and cool in terms of speed, timing, and everything else.
Exactly. And it allows people to actually use the different softwares because they don't have to go looking for a link. Ask somebody, okay, where is the OpenSpace system? All from here, you would be, again, like I showed you in the little video, there's the app section, the OpenSpace administration app that I connected together. And then this would bring up this view that I can then utilize to navigate and start to use those captures that the people are using, capturing on. So I mentioned earlier the ability to then just click a point on the plan sheet and then just be able to walk around. In OpenSpace, this is what it would look like. You have a full 360 image that you can click and drag to visually see around in 360. Our new navigation format is you'll have actually the path that the capture took so that you can then jump in and move around your mouse to then pick the points that you would like to jump into. One visual cue that we use is this mini map plan sheet that we use here in the top. If I zoom in a little bit, you'll see as I move my mouse around, it'll be kind of like that crosshair to give you a better understanding of where exactly you would be jumping into if you were to click into that area. So again, this is where that image first 360 ease of use comes in, because we are capturing 2 images per second as that person is walking around. So there's no need for them to kind of visually be thinking, am I going to need this in 6 months? Is my manager going to need this in 6 months? What about at the end of the project? Just walk around. We would do it all for you. So in this case, I can click into here, for example. I know it's going to take me to this spot. I can then click again and drag to visually see that scope of work. Now, this is the beauty if I was an architect. I can then start to understand If I were to just get a single image, I can look around and visually understand where am I standing, what else is around, and there's going to be other conflicts that I need. Same happens from a site perspective. The progress tracking capabilities here is huge, so you can then start to visually understand what that looks like. And a component of that is we have a split view capability, where you can open up in the bottom right a second image to then visually see the two together. Since we are capturing consistently, I'm able to click into the date picker and basically go back in time to understand what the project looked like at a previous date. In this case, I can go about over a month and say the 3rd of March last year. I can then lock the two together. And as I click and drag on one, the other will follow to give me that understanding of how much work actually happened over that basically an almost 2 months period of time. I'm trying to double check, confirm, tell a story on my job site of what completed work has happened in that previous time frame. I can visually see it by doing these two compared together. And that's really key. In the past, you're hoping you have the images to do this, and maybe the timing of it is not quite right to what you want. But with this consistency, you can do it just right. Another component of it is also comparing against the 3D model. So I will show you here, you have just above the split view, you have the bin viewer that you can click into as well. This will open up our browser view, where you can then start to see the 3D model that's been uploaded to then do the same thing, compare against the two, visually see and understand what the design intent is trying to tell you versus what the reality is on the left with the captures themselves. This will kind of set me up for when I start to talk about the RFIs, the observations, and the snag list, because the 3D model can give us so much information about what we intend to build alongside that photo documentation that we have from that image first kind of view here on the left. To talk a little bit about just these comparison between the two, from the model browser, I can click on an object, for example, and click hide to manually start hiding certain objects in my view, and kind of like this. But I also have quick tips for using kind of safe views at the top. And one of them is we can pre-create views to kind of help you with this object searching. If I've created this in the past, but I can click here. I want to hide all of the walls and ceilings because at the moment, this is where the project is right now. If as soon as I click this, it will do exactly that. I can then start to compare what will be installed in these two frames and kind of better give me that visibility that I need to really tell the right story. Some of the ductwork has begun. The framing is starting up. Top track is also here, but I can better understand what else is left to do and if there is going to be conflicts from that point of view. That's the beauty of navigating here as well. I know certain projects don't have BIM viewers, others have different expertise with navigating a 3D model. But with OpenSpace, you can do the same navigation as you were before, where I can click anywhere on the path here, and the 3D model will actually follow along. That way you don't have to learn anything new. Just click the safe view that you need, navigate as you would with 360 photo, and you're good to go. Talking to the RFI kind of example here. RFIs typically, especially the ones I used to create, are really difficult because you're trying to sending it off to somebody who might not be on the site every single day. If there is, you're trying to tell a story to explain the question that you have using written word. OpenSpace does a really good job of allowing and helping you through that workflow. But what we're trying to achieve here is give you that visual component of it in a 360 view as well. So together, we can kind of combine forces. And if I go to the field notes tool, this is the tool that we would use in OpenSpace to kind of start creating that point of interest. In my view here, I know I have an example that I want to utilize. And all I have to do if I've previously integrated or want to create a new one, I would just be able to say, hey, this specific component here is something that I want to ask a question about, and go up to the top right and then hit create. This will drop a pin in my view here to then start that process. Since I have the bin viewer also open, it'll create that view between the two. kind of collaborating, bringing on that view so I can tell the right story in these two options. Now I've pre-created some to do this, but if I were to create a new one to showcase that, I could add a description at the bottom. Let's see, description, example, telling the story of piping, installation, possible conflict, question. Now, this is just to give us some perspective in OpenSpace here. I can then create save. And you'll notice as soon as I do, the integration button will come available here. Now I can click on the Procore one and it'll pop up the options for me to select. If it's an RFI that I've pre-created in the past and I just want to add that visual component of it, I can link to an existing one, or I can just directly from here create a new one by clicking here. Now, all these fields will be things that you'll be configuring in the Procore system, but you can then start to select them from here without ever leaving this embedded experience of OpenSpace. So again, we're trying to keep you in this ecosystem together so you can kind of get your work done a lot faster. Now, Tony, I know we have an example to kind of utilize this kind of view of how easy it is to creation within OpenSpace, as well as collaborating that workflow in Procore. So I'll just kind of use that example to showcase this RFI. So in this case, for example, we could be asking a question to somebody that is in the field. I've pre-created it. I've then integrated it with a Procore. And then as soon as this is completed, I've assigned it to Tony. So Tony, what we can do now is I'll let you share your screen to kind of explain the visual of what it would look like after something's been created.
Perfect.
With the link, the descriptions of what brings over for documents from OpenSpace. And then you can see that workflow happen from the mobile app.
Yeah, and this should work seamlessly with all good tech. So I'm assuming everybody can see that. So look, again, I said this right at the beginning in terms of bugbearers and RFIs was a particular bugbear for me when I was on construction sites. Half the time it was written by somebody on a bit of paper they found in their pocket. You know, they'd go back, they'd try and send an email, or they'd literally put a note on someone's desk. It takes 3 or 4 days for someone to see it, 3 or 4 days for someone to get the information. Before you know it, you've lost a week's worth of work where you're waiting for an RFI to be answered. So, you know, I'm now in the Procore mobile app. So what I can now do is from here, I can select the projects I'm actually going to be working on. You'll be indicating all the projects that you've got access to. I can jump straight into the OpenSpace project that I'm a member of, scroll down to RFIs. And what you'll notice here is all of the RFIs that have been assigned to me are going to be visual here. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the RFI that Andres has already set up. And there you go. All the information that he's input, you know, in his site office, in the OpenSpace kind of issues section is all visual here. It's synced into Procore really quickly, really simply. The user would get a notification, an email notification themselves saying, you know, you've got an RFI to answer. Please answer it. You can open up your app and jump straight to it. So what I can now do is I can add a response to that. So I can turn around based on the information in the RFI and saying, look, pipe installed as per the drawings and specification. We need to send to the BIM manager for confirmation. Send. So I've now posted that RFI. I can mark that as an official response. So this is actually going to be recorded within the RFI. You can loads of draft notes you can put in, but only when you click that as official, that will actually go as an official kind of RFI element. So that's now synced into the project. So again, by magic, if I now stop sharing my screen and we go, Andres opens up the Procore app that he's got open, we should see my response within that RFI. And there you go.
Exactly. Yeah. And the beauty of having connected both together here is we have the workflow working for us. We've kind of collaborated together, and at any point that we need to get that better visual, I use this example because it's something that can happen often. You write pipe installation, you're asking if the 3D model is supposed to be installed per drawing, but then you're left asking questions. Okay, well, where exactly is this?
Yeah.
I've had documents, I have a photo, I can open up this photo here to visually understand what pipe you mean. But this is where OpenSpace come in. you're just looking at this and I asked you to tell me where exactly this was on the project, pretty sure you have a tougher time unless you're there every single day looking at this pipe. But as you'll see here in the RFI itself, we've added in a section for you to click right into it and go into OpenSpace to visually see it. So if I click into that, it's going to take me, open up a new tab, take me straight to that RFI that I had pre-created. And if I close it, I can visually see it in full 360 view to get a better understanding, as well as use the map that I was showing earlier to better understand where exactly this location was to understand. So not only has an answer that will work for us, but I have that image first component to be able to give a better answer and a lot quicker rather than coming back to and saying, okay, what, great, pipe is installed per drawing, but what exactly, where's the pipe? Where is this installation?
Yeah.
Kind of answering that component. So I'm a closer step to go back to the embedded experience, but that's the beauty of kind of utilizing that integration together. Now, from an observations point of view, this is where we can then start to create tasks within both systems. And I have an integrations tab here. So if I want to go look for the example that I'm going to use, I can then search for record types. I'm going to just click on observation, and it's going to show me the 2 observations that have been pre-created in the past. And I can very quickly click on one of them, visually see it in OpenSpace if I want to. There's also a icon to take me directly to the 360 view of where this was created. Again, 3D model is following me if I need it. Since this has been pre-created in the past, I can still click on it, click on the OpenSpace icon, and then jump straight to the observation from here, which is really, really nice to kind of just have that quick access to it. Now, OpenSpace allows the field notes that I've been showing you to be created as you walk around doing the 360 capture. So it can kind of help with just snapping a few photos as you're already taking the 360 camera around, but then be able to also link it to things that have already been created for that photo documentation. So in this case, I can say, I know there's an observation that I've been created in the past. It happened in Procore, but I want to be able to link it to that image first perspective here in OpenSpace. I'll then just kind of scroll, find the one I'm looking for, and then be able to jump right into it to push it on and say this one here. So this is for just a photo, the Docker prime verification, because I know I just created this in Procore. I can go up to the Procore icon, click to existing observation, and link both together. At this point, I'll have that full visibility of all the observations that have been created in the past, and then click the one that I'm looking for. In this case, will be this one, created by me, view the observation, and I can just click to link both together. Once it does, it'll create that same flow of attach the photo, attach the documentations that was created in OpenSpace, and then add that link for the image first kind of visual 360 view. So now that it says it's successfully linked, I could do the same thing. Click on the icon, and then click directly into the hyperlink to take me to that observation. And then I have that same workflow where I can then push this off to the next step. But at least I've added that information from OpenSpace as that visual. Kind of, again, connect the platforms better if we work together, rather than telling somebody, hey, just look at OpenSpace. Everyone will be asking, well, where exactly was it taken as well?
Yeah, and very similar to OpenSpace, where they're going to be recording that data within Procore in your your personal view when you first log in. Anything that's been assigned to you that you've not actioned or you've not done, you might have been away for the weekend, you might get loads of email notifications. The minute you open up Procore, all of these linked tasks that have been assigned to you are going to be visual in your kind of homepage, if you like. So it's really simple and really easy, and I can't emphasize enough just the ease of being able to get that information at your fingertips really quickly and being able to make those decisions a lot quicker. I mentioned RFIs like a week before you've got the information. You can almost do this within minutes in terms of getting the answers that you need, getting that information back, making a decision. You're not sitting around on site figuring out, well, what have I got to do next? Do I move on to another task or wait for this? That information can come to you almost immediately. You can act on it, get the work done, move on.
Yeah, exactly. And again, ease of use is huge for both of us because
Yeah.
we're trying to make this process so much easier for everybody. Not only the internal teams, but the collaborators that have to be answering these questions. And they got other projects to work on and things to answer as well. So how can we make their lives easier? Now, this specific project that I've been showing you, it's a bit too early for the snag process. You would typically be doing this in observations if it was the space of the project. But to use it as an example of what can be working here together is we have gone around, whether I have done the snag process in Procore or identified something in OpenSpace by using this split view of the two. I can find that field note and be able to visually understand the two by, if I go directly to the one I'm looking for, clicking into this one, and I'll show you kind of like an example when it comes to existing conditions of, not existing conditions, sorry, how something was installed and how it can differ from the plans because of what the actual plans she showed you. So in this case that I'm seeing here, I have both the 3D model and what was actually installed. I hope I come across well enough. Maybe I'll make it a bit brighter. Real quick, maybe change the shadows a little bit. But you can see the pipe here on the left was actually installed differently because there would have been a clash. This is something that the field team had to make a decision on just to get the installation done correctly. And this can be an as-built condition that needs to be updated at the end of the project to make sure the 3D model reflects what actually was installed on site. So what we can do with both systems here is I can click into an object, click on Shift, and then manually start selecting some of these objects to visually tell the story together. I'm going to then overlay this pipe into the image to then be able to tell the BIM managers what the 3D model shows versus what the actual installation in the field looks like together. Now, I would be able to create that field like I showed you earlier, and then be able to start give some of that information here with markups, descriptions. This is the as-built conditions. This is what we need to be updating. And as soon as I click here, I can then create that punch list so that the action happens and the workflow happens in Procore. So I'll click here, for example, as-built. And give it a due date as well. Say this is due by the end of April. And then I can then assign it. In this case, I'll just select a new Tony, a person to take the next action. Again, I'm doing this all from this embedded experience of using OpenSpace as an image kind of capability. I can visually see it, but then go create and link it to Procore to kind of set the next stage of that workflow to happen. At this point, once this is done and complete, everybody will be able to visually see and understand it from this punch list, be able to jump into OpenSpace to visually see the same thing I'm looking at here, and then be able to use the compare feature to compare against the two. Whereas before, it could have been snapshots, could have been a photo from the field that is a lot harder to understand, not only exactly where you are and what you're looking at, but be able to tell the full story of everything else. This component can people who have access to OpenSpace can then even use the split view to see behind walls of something was installed so they can better understand and update the as-built conditions of the 3D model with that information. And this kind of overlay view is something that we kind of utilize and release with BIM Plus to kind of tell that story better. Before you would have to imagine what something overlaid an image would look like. Now we're kind of giving you that capability to do both together. Again, getting to the answer a lot quicker than before by using both systems as a platform. Now, so far I've shown you kind of like the workflow of navigating, being able to use the split view as well as a 3D model together to compare against the conditions as the progress happens, as well as the integration of RFIs, observations, and the snag list. All this kind of comes together, like we mentioned earlier on the connected experience of using a platform to get projects done a lot faster and improve the collaboration across the whole team. And one of those components is, I will have a few slides actually here that I need to go through because I had videos prepared. But it's kind of just keeping in mind, and Tony, I think you can add some good insight into here from the Procore perspective, but just having that data all in one place, and then visually seeing the progress over time if you need to go back and answer an RFI or kind of tell that story as well.
Yeah, definitely. And look, I'll just share my screen again just to kind of give you a bit more context to this as well. So look, this is a demo project within Procore, but this just kind of sets the scene again in terms of the data that you're collecting. This is a typical project homepage from Procore's perspective, and this will be tailored to not only the project you're on, but also your personal kind of use and the permissions that you have within Procore. So you've got all the projects again at the top in the nav bar that you've got access to. You're going to have information on the project team, the key project dates that you've got to be mindful of. Not really mention this, and I'm not going to go into this in too much detail, but this is a really neat view from a project manager's point of view. This is what's called our project overview, but it really gives people just a snapshot overview of what's going on site. So anything in red is overdue, amber is due within the next 7 days, green is 7 days and out. So, somebody might be emailing you, calling you saying, hey, look, we've got tons of work outstanding here, projects behind schedule. You can go into Procore, you can view your overview, and you can see exactly what's going on. You can click on each of these individual colored bars. You can bring up all of those RFIs, for example, that are overdue. You can click into anything, automatically jump into that. So that data that's being collected, being collated on that construction site is all there in front of you. You have access to that, whenever you need it, and you can jump to any of those points as well. You'll have information like my open items. So anything that's been assigned to you on that particular project is going to be visual in here as well. So you're going to have anything from, you might be sent a risk RFI, snag that's going to be requiring your action to deal with. But you've got all of that data there. Okay, you can access all of your individual tools within Procore from here. So if you've got RFIs, you might have observations that you need to look at. You want to look at the contract element of it if you're a kind of project director. So you have everything in front of you at your fingertips. And again, to the point that we made right at the beginning of this kind of presentation, it's all about speed of access, having access to that data really simply, really easily, so that you can make decisions. And if you go back to that very first slide we kind of shared about that chaotic work on a construction site and how it currently is with your individual point solutions. Can you imagine in that scenario of having, right, well, I've got my health and safety guy has an app that he collects all of that information, but he's got that on his laptop. Then we've got, a guy that's been taking photos with his mobile phone. They're all on his own phone. He's not uploaded any of that. He might email a couple of them. That's not the situation here. The situation is that all of that information is in here in Procore. You have access to all the different applications that we have within our marketplace. And even within here, you can build out reports. So we have Power BI sitting at the core of Procore that builds out, really powerful analytics reports on any of these solutions. So you might have a guy that says, look, give me a list of all the RFIs from OpenSpace over the last 6 months. I can build a report up of that. It will give me a nice, dashboard, put all of that information in and give me a visual representation of exactly what's been created on site, what's been actioned, what's not been actioned. How many RFIs have we had in a 6-month period? Who's it come from? Has it come from a particular contractor? So you can then start to drill down really into the workings on a construction site. So not only are you just looking at all of that data, you're really starting to make decisions based around the information that you've got in front of you. And overall, it allows for a much speedier construction process. Decisions are made much quicker. Hopefully you're going to be finishing those projects on time or before time. You're not going to be getting these LADs, these hefty kind of late charges placed upon you guys. And ultimately, you're going to be earning money on that construction project, which, we all know how the construction industry is in terms of margins. So, if we can finish these projects, make it a much more profitable business, it's a much more kind of, interactive way of doing it.
Yeah. And I think a component of that is, unfortunately, we as humans, we haven't quite gotten the time travel component out there yet. But with OpenSpace, again, you're trying to answer those questions for Power BI, things that are happening along the whole life cycle of the project. If you can use that image first capability to just jump back in time and visually see it, you might have not been there from day one whenever you joined do that project, but you can visually see it all from that embedded experience in Procore. which helps so much.
Yeah,
I knew I joined projects halfway through, and it's so difficult to understand how something was installed. So you just weren't there.
Yeah,
but
someone
with an
might pull
image,
up a
you can at
grainy
least get an
photo on their
understanding.
phone. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
A grainy image on their
Yeah.
phone. Hey, I remember I did something like this, but it was, I can't remember the date and who did it or what. But
Gosh.
just to have that
Agreed.
information in front of you is massive.
Agreed. Yeah. But to get into the Q&A, we did get a question from Glenn. So thanks for the question. The question states, actually, I think I can answer live. Can you measure within the site scan imagery? And if so, how accurate is the measure? Which is a really, really good question. We've kind of been looking through this and better understanding how we can actually achieve this. And what we found is the accuracy just, honestly, just isn't there. So what we've pivoted to is be able to kind of let you integrate with your laser scan. So with BIM Plus, you're able to upload those laser scans that you have on your job site and then be able to use those because we know and understand those are way more accurate than we could from the 360 camera. And not only can you do that, then compare the laser scan to the 360 videos, and then even overlay the actual 3D model on top of that laser scan as well, all from within that split view that I was showing earlier. So that's kind of how we approach to take to make sure we get you the best accuracy when you're trying to compare and measure too. If others have any questions, please don't hesitate to put them in the chat, in the Q&A. Otherwise, I mean, it's been a pleasure. Tony, thanks again for joining me.
Yeah, been awesome, man. Loved it. Been great.
Yeah, I could talk about construction and connected experiences and just the things that I would have done to have some of these things when I first started in construction.
I say this constantly, you know, literally every time I see some, obviously I'm quite lucky in terms of, you know, the tech that I'm witness to and seeing in the industry. And yeah, man, I look at it daily thinking, if only I had this, you know, when I was on a construction site, how easy it would have been, you know, to get stuff completed, right?
Yeah, but hey, at least we're here, we've connected, and we're trying to solve those problems for those out there. So it's good to see. Perfect. Okay, well, I'll stick around for a little bit longer just to see if anything comes through. Otherwise, everyone that's joined and watching the recording, it has been a pleasure. If you ever need to get in touch with us, Tony, Andres will be more in here and happy to help. And we'll kind of take it from there.
Awesome. Thanks for your time, guys.
All right. Thanks, everyone.